So I'm going to start here with the left front brake here. I'm going to remove the caliper. It's 2 bolts here that go into like a pin that let this assembly slide, and it's a 14 millimeter. So now I want to see if I can pry this back a little bit. So I'm slowly compressing the piston back into the cylinder. And that's enough. I should be able to remove it pretty easily. And I'm got some iron wire here. I'm gonna use it to hang this so it doesn't stress the hydraulic hose here. So let's see. I'll take that off. I can just put it right around that hole. Slide it out of the way. And I want to just hold it so that in a way that it's not stressing the hose. And so I'm just going to tie it to the spring up here. So you can see I've got the caliper tied up with some iron wire in such a way along the spring here so that the hydraulic line, the brake line, doesn't have a hard or sharp bend in it. And I've got it wired up and out of the way. Now I can remove the pads here. These look a lot like the Toyota pads I just removed recently, where there's these 2 springs. It actually looks identical. I just did brakes on a Toyota Highlander, and they look exactly the same. There's all the anti-shims and things like that. Anti-squeak. And I'm going to leave the rest of that in there for now, so I can, when I put that back, that's when I'll replace all the brake hardware. So now I'm going to remove the carrier here. And that's a 19. And this one might be a little harder. I might need to get a breaker bar on this thing. No, not too bad. The reason I need this off is I need to get the disc off, the brake disc, and because I need to pull the axle out. You might have noticed the boot's severely torn there. And when you take a sharp turn, there's a clunk up here in the front, and I believe it's the axle. there's the carrier. I'm just going to put these bolts back in here so I don't lose them. Same with the brake. I just put them all in. I'm going to clean this up before I reinstall it. That's going to be a while because I have got a lot of other things to do before I get to that point. I'm going to label that too so I don't have to spend time thinking about just the right or the left. Okay, I'm not even sure if it matters. So I think this hammer's off. I just need to get a soft hammer, but I'm going to find out now. It looks like it's not really a part of the hub. It might be, like I say. Sure doesn't look like it. May just have been on there a long time. Okay, I've moved the camera to a different angle to show you. The rotor does come off and it's stuck, but I've noticed there's these two threaded holes here that I can put a bolt in and push the rotor off without having to hammer on it. So the bolt size is about a 10 millimeter. Actually, so the bolt size is about a 10 millimeter. And the thread pitch, I've got a gauge here. And it's 1.25 millimeters is the pitch. And so I happen to have a few bolts I save for different things like that, and put these in here. I save every bolt I can because they do come in handy. So both the bolts are now making contact. So I'm just going to go back and forth and tweak on these. Yeah, I heard it break loose there. You know, it's too bad you couldn't use the bolt from the caliper. That would have been handy. But I guess for some reason it didn't work out for them. There we go. Got the rotor off. That'll need to be reconditioned. But yeah, what I'm saying is, I guess this bolt was too small in diameter. Maybe they were afraid you'd damage it. Maybe, and this one was a little large. But I think I would have tried to figure out a way to make that happen, just out of convenience. But anyway, we've got it off. And next thing I'm going to do is remove this nut here. And I'm going to go ahead and measure it while I'm here, see what socket I need to use. That's one thing nice about the metric system. It says I need a 36 millimeter socket, so now I know exactly what to go get. So now I'm going to remove this cotter pin. That's a healthy cotter pin right there. And what I mean by that, it's sized accordingly. Got the cotter pin out. I think they call that a cotter pin because the guy that invented it, maybe his name was Cotter, I'm not sure. I got a 36 here, fits right on there. Use the air on this one. And I'm going to go ahead and strike that with the dead blow mallet just to kind of loosen it up. It is going in. That's good. Yeah, and I've got a puller if I need to use it. I think I'll spray some kind of lubricant in there to help that hub come loose from there. It's been there a while. So I've got some liquid wrench here. I can just get in there with that. Yeah, that freed it up pretty good, I guess. Gives me a little extra room. So next I'm going to remove the sway bar link, which is this part here. And it takes a 14 millimeter socket on the nut on top here. And then you have to back it up with a 12 millimeter wrench on the bottom here. And I'm removing this so I can allow the lower control arm to swing down lower. Once I remove these nuts and bolts, there's the pieces there. And so next I'm going to remove these two bolts. And the nuts on this side are 19. And you have to back it up on the back side here with a 17. And so what I'm hoping to do is pry this out, and maybe it'll give me enough play to get that axle out. Not sure. I might have to remove the lower ball joint. But I'm going to try this first, just in case. So yeah, I'm able to remove the axle without disturbing the lower ball joint. Good to know. So now I'm going to try and get this axle out. I've got a pry bar. I'm going to gently try to pop it out of its. Sometimes they come out easy and sometimes they don't. Let's see if I can get this one. Yep, she came on out. Good job, buddy. Couldn't find a plug, so I'm just gonna put put a rag in there just to keep something getting in there. So now I'll just go to the other side, the right side. One thing I wanted to point out was this bump stop here for the steering. That's pretty cool. You don't see that very often. I don't. Where there's a bolt and a locking nut where you can adjust how much turn you can get out of the car. I might want to play around with that. Yeah, let's see what I can do with that later. I'm just going to get it running good now. So I did remove the axle on the passenger side. I'll show you the axle I pulled out. I didn't film actually doing it because it's so tight in there you wouldn't really see much except my hands. But you can see there's a flange there with 3 holes. That flange actually holds the axle in place. And so you just, and there's like 3 12mm bolts on the back side of that flange. You undo those bolts and just pull on the axle and it'll come right out of the transmission. So when you're purchasing new CV joints, you're going to need to know the transmission type on these Nissan Maximas. And there's an identification plate on the passenger side of the firewall that identifies what kind of transmission you have in your car. Evidently they had a few choices. So this long drive shaft here, this is the passenger side. These are the 3 bolts I removed, and this is the flange. The bolts bolt in from this side here. Once you remove the bolts and just tug on that, it comes right out of the spline. So while I have all this access here, it occurred to me I should go ahead and change the oil. So it's got the drain pan is right here, and there's the oil filter. It makes perfect sense to go ahead and drain all that while I've got all this access. So this is a 14mm, and I'm going to be using the socket on the filter here. And the socket is a Calvan 785. It's the brand Calvan, and it's a 785. But before I do that, I'm going to put some brake cleaner on here and clean the boss, the area around where the oil filter goes. Later I'm going to be cleaning it a lot more. But right now I just want to get that area around the oil filter, because I don't want anything to get into my oil system here. I'm going to drain this now. I'm going to go ahead and crack this. Wait, somebody's got it on there tight. Let's see. Somebody really over tightened that boy. Yeah, I'd say the oil's pretty black. I would say it's time. And while that's going on, get the oil filter cracked open. Those are pretty nice. If if you happen to have the right one that fits. They're also a little tricky to get off. They tend to want to stay, so you have to kind of tap it back off. A lot easier to do while it's still on the car. I'll let that drain. And I'm also going to wipe that little area there. There's a little bit of dirt hanging around there. So I'll let that drain a good long time. I don't even have the oil. I know it's 10W30. Dyno oil is probably what I'm going to use, because this car has a lot of leaks. If I put synthetic in it, it'll probably just have more leaks.